Welcome, everybody. A little late here, getting my desk together. How we doing? This is John Aravosis with the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Chicago, not Washington, D.C. Still visiting Chicago for the next couple weeks. We're here to talk about the latest from Ukraine, the latest from Israel, and let me get TikTok rolling on my iPad, and then we will do just that. Hang on. And actually introduce yourselves. Say where you are from for starters, if you would. Let me get this settled out. Change the title. I did a hangout this weekend. Hang on here. We're going to start with Ukraine tonight instead of Israel. Let me get, come on. Got to put my glasses on or I can't see a damn thing. Here we go. All right. Anyway, how we doing, guys? Ukraine and, Israel. Update. All right. All right. Boom. All right. Boom. There we go. Lovely. That's warm. There we go. Okay, guys. Mirror video. Okay, I am set now, and my videos are almost up on TikTok. How we doing? How are we doing? Everybody good today? Hi from Nova Scotia. Hi, TikTok. How are you doing over there? TikTok is still joining us, I think, slowly. Nova Scotia, which I've never been to. Been to Canada. Several parts, but not been there. Hey, Alex. Good evening. What's going on, guys? Hey, Evie. Mark Star. Anyway, how are we doing, folks? Joshua, lovely. Thank you, Richard and John. Ooh, so what's going on, folks? Happy weekend. Thank you, John, or happy end of weekend, I should say. John S., Alex. Oh, boy. Shane. Lovely. Oh, anyway. Hey, Super Hornet. We always take a minute or two at the very beginning just to wait for folks to arrive. Thank you, hey, Jeff, because kind of notice goes out. Elizabeth, notice goes out on TikTok. Mustard. So many little gifts on TikTok. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. It's my birthday today. Richard says it's his birthday today. It's both of our birthdays today. Congratulations. Happy birthday, Richard. Richard Wilkinson over on YouTube. That's funny. That's funny. Well, happy birthday. Oh, thanks, Laka. Oh, guys. Anyway. Oh, hey, Chief. Thank you for that. Thanks, guys. You did get the message today. That's good. I know you never quite know with TikTok if it's going to let you know. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Evie. Hey, Hey, Mustard. Thank you for the gift. Thank you, Tom, for the confetti. That's why I picked the confetti today. I thought it was birthday-ish. They don't quite have birthday things on TikTok, but they did have confetti. Thank you, everybody. So, yeah, thank you. Hey, Pam, thank you. So, yeah, there's a lot of news today. I'm going to start with Ukraine because I like to kind of mix it up. Occasionally we do Ukraine, occasionally we do Israel first. Thank you, Big Hawk. But there's good amount of news on both. Thank you, Ava. So it's worth kind of actually a lot on Ukraine, a good amount on Israel too. Thank you, it's Tom, Alex. So many gifts. Thank you, guys. Pam. I was going to say Pamk. Thank you, Red. I read Pam K and I almost went Pamk. Pamk. Oh, God. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Timothy. Very sweet of you. I was getting the gifts. I'm 39. I am 39 again, Susan. I am. Yep. 39 again. Thank God I've got those Greek genes. Make me look younger. At least I'm told. So we got that going for me. I did have my doctor tell me that once, which I was glad. He goes, you have the body of someone 10 years younger. I was like, does that really matter in terms of health, though? And he said, yes. So I was like, oh, good. Thank you, Elizabeth. Apparently you always read about that, but I always thought that was kind of a goofy thing when they say that. Apparently, my doctor felt it mattered in terms of your health, that like if you got kind of good genes and you're younger, that your body actually is younger and healthier. I was like, works for me. Works for me. Thank you guys for the birthday wishes. All right, let me get they do have I forgot about that. They do have those. I was trying to find birthday themed stuff. Thank you, Flower Lady. So yeah, guys, I will start with the Ukraine news. Thank you, Ellie. And then I will go to the Israel news. And I'll tell you just a quick little bit of American news first. Since so folks know, if you haven't been here before, this is a news show that I started doing regarding the war in Ukraine. Maybe a week or so after the Russians invaded, or 8 days or something like that. Thank you, Jeremy. I did a broadcast because I was getting so like annoyed with everything, and I thought it might be nice to go through the news with people. And I think it was like a Saturday, I think, because people said, "Thank you, Becca." I remember people going, "Oh, okay, so same time tomorrow," and I was like, I was exhausted at the end of the show. Thanks, Becca. And I said, "Same time tomorrow? Are you crazy?" And they said, "No, let's do another one." So I did another one, and we just sort of got hooked. And for the first several months, I did it 7 days a week. Now I've been doing 5 days a week since then, covering Ukraine. But with the war in Israel and Gaza, I decided to start covering that because I think it's important. And there's a relation to it, war and superpowers and all of that. And with the presidential elections coming up next year, I really feel like I don't have a choice but to cover them. Thank you, Andre. There's always a risk with any of these topics because, thank you, Beaches Adventures, because you always run the risk of pissing people off. And I mean, Ukraine, not so much. Israel and Gaza, certainly. U.S. elections, certainly. But I think the election's too big. There's really there's no choice but to, I can't ignore it. Anyways, so I'm going to start with one quick American sort of election story, so to speak, and then we'll jump into Ukraine, and then we'll cover Israel. So Trump yesterday went online and talked about how he failed to repeal Obamacare, and if he's elected again, he's going to look into doing it again. Now, remember, Obamacare is healthcare legislation that President Obama got passed. Ironically, it was as legislation, it wasn't popular. So when people said Obamacare, it was not popular. It didn't poll well. Thank you, Martin. The individual portions of Obamacare, I remember this from like CNN and some of the polls. The individual portions of Obamacare polled around 70 or 80%. So when you told people, would you like legislation that bans insurance companies from kicking you out because of pre-existing or denying you coverage because of pre-existing conditions, 80% of the American people said yes. And you went through all the things that Obamacare, would you like legislation that says women get mammograms for free? Yes. Immunizations for free? Yes. Right. Or all this kind of stuff. Right. But Obamacare itself was very unpopular, even though the portions. Well, as time went on, thank you, Martin. As time went on, it got more popular. Thank you, James. And Trump finally tried to repeal it in 2008. He got within one vote of doing it. John McCain in the United States Senate voted against repeal, which was shocking because McCain is a conservative Republican, he died, was a very, very conservative Republican. And for him, he got out there on the floor and went like this, and everyone went, oh my God. And he went like this, meaning no, let's not repeal it. Thank you, Becca. Shocked people. For me, that was a big deal because I have health insurance because of Obamacare. I have pre-existing conditions. In America, before Obamacare, something as small as asthma, eczema, high blood pressure, high cholesterol could be enough for insurance companies to say, we're not going to give you insurance. It was that bad. I guarantee you, I would not have insurance. I wouldn't have insurance, right? I did have insurance, but I would have lost my insurance for sure if I didn't have Obamacare. Any case, the point of bringing this up right now, not to get into a whole healthcare debate because that's a whole other crazy thing in America, but Trump came out yesterday and said, I'm going to fight to repeal Obamacare again. And a lot of Democrats, actually pretty much every Democrat went, yay, because Trump's effort to repeal Obamacare blew up in the Republicans' faces. Initially, Obamacare was not popular back at the beginning. By 2018, 8 years into it, Obamacare was wildly popular to the point where Republicans lost the 2018 elections. This was between presidential. The presidential elections were 2016, 2020. So 2018 were just the congressional elections. The Republicans got killed in those elections because of healthcare. Because he tried to take out Obamacare. So Obamacare, like I said, I said at the beginning, you probably came in a little late, Red, but basically it's legislation that guarantees things for Americans that the rest of you already have. Guarantees women can get what do you call them? I would say breast exams. Exams for breast exams. What do they call them? For cancer. Guarantees that you can't get kicked off of your health care because of your conditions. You can't be denied health insurance. You can't be denied health insurance. A mammogram, thank you. You can't be denied health insurance because of your pre-existing conditions. You can't be charged more. What they would do too is they would say, Okay, we're going to continue with Ukraine and Israel next after this. But they would say things like, insurance companies, well, we're not. I have a friend. He was working as a substitute teacher, so he didn't have insurance because he wasn't working full time. 33-year-old guy at the time, very healthy, perfectly healthy. He showed me the letter. It was from Aetna. I don't remember now. He showed me the letter when they denied him insurance at age 33, totally healthy. And the letter literally said, eczema? You were turned down because of eczema? I believe it said allergies and high cholesterol. I remember there were three things that were so stupid. And I said, you're not giving a 33-year-old insurance because of this? Or what they would do, they would give you insurance and then say, we'll give you insurance, but it's going to cost you $1,000 a month for the insurance as a 33-year-old, which is insane and nobody could afford to do it. Now they can't do any of that. So in any case, the idea of Trump now saying, I'm going to go after Obamacare again is a huge benefit for Democrats, hugely stupid on Trump's part. Of course, the danger is he gets elected and does it, and then people like me lose their health insurance. Very scary stuff. But in any case, just wanted to bring it up because it was an important issue, and I am going to be talking more about election issues as we go on. All right, let's jump to Ukraine, though, guys. It is day 639 of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation in Ukraine. Russia had its biggest drone attack, I don't know whether it's of the war, but of a very long time this weekend, going after Kyiv. I don't know if they went after other cities. Massive drone attack, something on the order of, I'm sorry, guys, I'm forgetting now because the news happened this weekend and I just jotted it quickly on here. Something like 70 drones or something, the kamikaze drones. Crazy number. We talked to Vlad about it on my Saturday show that we have, and most of them got shot down, which is good. 76, Jeremy's saying. I was going to say, I remember it was, Alex is saying 75. Yeah, I remember it was in that range. Most of them got shot down. I think some of them did get through. The ones that got through caused some damage. The big concern is, from talking to Vlad this weekend, my friend in Ukraine who joins us for my weekend show, Vlad was saying the real big concern is that these drones, most of them were made in Russia. That basically Russia has now finally upped its drone making capacity, its domestic drone making capacity with the help of the Iranians, and they're producing a hell of a lot of them. And the Ukrainians are producing a lot too, but the Russian capacity has sort of gone crazy, and it's incredibly dangerous for Ukraine. So very, very scary news about where this is heading. Having said that, Ukraine is not totally helpless. Ukraine, in response, did its own massive drone attack against Moscow, sending 11 drones at Moscow. The Russians say they were all shot down. One drone did hit a building. Injuries were reported by the local media. Other than that, it's kind of hard to find out what did happen. But the Ukrainians are basically trying to up the ante and say, if you go after us bigger, we're going to go after you bigger, which will be interesting to see what happens with that. Because remember, the big thing I'm curious about is the Russians also this weekend went after electricity in Ukraine. They're always doing that, going after the electricity infrastructure, try to make the Ukrainians freeze for the winter. Thank you, B. Smith. And Zelensky has said a couple different times now, if the Russians go after electricity again in Ukraine this winter, the Ukrainians will go after electricity in Russia. And we've not quite seen any evidence of that yet, but it'd be interesting to see if they do. Ukrainian forces struck an aircraft plant in the Russian city of Smolensk overnight. What is interesting about this is Smolensk is about 400 kilometers southwest of Moscow, and 300 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. 400 kilometers would be, I'm going to go 270 miles maybe. 300 kilometers is 200 miles. That's a pretty good distance into Russia that they were able to hit. Again, the question becomes, were these attacks launched from Ukraine, or were they attacks where somebody helping Ukraine crosses the border, gets the weapons or the drones, and then launches them from within Russia? We don't know. I do suspect some of the drones being fired at Moscow aren't coming from Ukraine, meaning they don't take off of Ukraine and go all the way to Moscow. They might be being smuggled in, and then they take off near Moscow. Ukrainian resistance also blew up a car with Chechen fighters in it near occupied Melitopol. Just to show you, Melitopol is down here. This is in, I would say, Melitopol and Mariupol, really. Melitopol especially, this whole area, the resistance has been quite active, meaning this is the area where Ukrainians who are occupied by the Russians, civilians, are basically working secretly with the Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian intelligence, and they're blowing up Russians, and they're blowing up a lot of Ukrainians who are working for the Russians, basically, helping the occupation, helping the Russians control occupied Ukraine, but also going after Russians themselves, like these Chechen fighters. All right, a little bit more on Ukraine. This is a horrific story. A sip of water first. The Ukrainian National Resistance Center announced today that the Russian officials are getting together new lists of Ukrainian children that they plan on kidnapping from the occupied territories and taking back to Russia. As you guys know, the Russians have taken thousands of Ukrainian kids. They literally kidnapped these kids. They went and they took kids, and they didn't just kind of by chance find kids. There are videos early on in the war showing the Russians going into Ukrainian orphanages looking for kids and taking these kids back to Russia. They then put them up for adoption. There was the news this weekend, it was Friday maybe, that a senior Russian official in the Russian parliament announced that he was adopting, or he had adopted, a Ukrainian baby. I believe the baby was around 10 months old, meaning this kid will never know that he's actually Ukrainian and he actually was stolen from Ukraine. Or when he does find out, imagine what that's going to do to this kid's head. It is horrific what they're doing. They're doing it again. They've got a new list of children they're planning on deporting from the Ukrainian, and again, the occupied territories, meaning the parts of Ukraine that Russia occupies. It's still a lot of Ukrainians living there. They're taking children that they claim do not have guardianship, and they're going to deport them. Now, do not have guardianship can mean a couple different things. Thank you, Louis. In general, it means the Russians can't find their parents. Well, A, the Russians could have killed their parents, right? I mean, A, either accidentally or on purpose. B, the fog of war, who the hell knows? The parents could think the kids are dead and not even know the kid's still alive, right? I mean, who knows what the story is here? But bottom line is, even if the Russians found orphans, like you're a Russian soldier, you're in occupied Ukraine, and I don't know where you find them, but you come across a baby lying on the ground, and you're because of the goodness of your heart, you don't want to let the baby die. So you pick him up and you take him back to headquarters. Fair enough, right? Thank you, Michael. And I don't even need to explain this to you all. The next step, right? You invade a foreign country. You find a baby on the ground, or in a bombed out, even not even on the ground, in a bombed out building. The next step is not to take the baby and say, this is kind of neat, I'm taking him home, right? The next step is to take him to your authorities, and the authorities get in touch with the Ukrainians and say, we regularly have prisoner swaps. We should have a swap of children that we found that don't have parents. Obviously, you don't take them and say, shiny penny, I'm going to keep it. That's what the Russians are doing. It's not just a war crime. It is the war crime that Vladimir Putin has been indicted on. This is the arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin from the International Criminal Court, is because the Russians have been literally kidnapping and stealing and brainwashing Ukrainian children to turn them into Russians. It is, by the way, quite literally genocide. I Googled it. It is literally genocide, because the idea is you're trying to wipe the country off the face of the earth, and you're even taking their children and trying to brainwash their children into no longer being Ukrainian, so you can just wipe out the next generation. Anyway, obviously this gets me really upset. It's just so effed up. It really is. Ukraine said this weekend that they will not sign a peace treaty with the Russians without reparations being included. Now, let's see what happens when it happens. What I worry about any peace treaty with Russia, how do you sign a peace treaty with a country that's committing genocide? And again, I know people like to throw genocide around. I'm not one of those, especially as a lawyer, I'm not one of those that likes to throw genocide around for any war I don't like. This is literal genocide. The Russians are literally trying to wipe Ukraine off the map. Putin has already said so. Putin has said Ukraine isn't a real country. I've told you guys this before. One of the quotes at the beginning of the war from the Russians was, the Ukrainians think they're Ukrainian. They don't realize they're Russians. They're brainwashed. And we're going to re-educate them so that they know that they're really not anything. They're just Russians. They're not really Ukrainians. That is genocide. Okay. Thank you, Mustard. But it's a good question, which is, with everything that Russia has done, how do you reach a peace agreement? I mean, you can reach a peace agreement, but how do you reach a peace agreement that in any way leaves Russia in a good condition? That in no way punishes them, right? I mean, World War II, right? Germany lost, and we reached a peace deal with Germany. But guess what? They went on trial, right? We didn't forgive the war crimes from World War II. We didn't tell the Germans, well, we have to have peace in Europe. You lost, blah, blah, blah. Thank you, boy, mom. But as a condition for not fighting anymore, we're just not going to hold you responsible for killing 6 million Jews and killing millions of other, people you didn't like in Europe, in addition to killing all the soldiers and the civilians and everybody else. I worry about what that means, for Russia going forward and whether we're going to forgive anything. I just don't know. British Ministry of Defense. So the British Ministry of Defense has a Twitter feed that they put out a lot of interesting updates, and two of them in two different dates were actually very good for Ukraine, which is good to see. One of them this weekend said that Russian casualties have been very high this year. Let me just read this to you from them. Throughout November 2023, Russian casualties, as reported by the Ukrainian General Staff, are running at a daily average of 931 per day. Previously, the deadliest reported month for Russia was March 2023, with an average of 776 losses per day at the height of Russia's assault on Bakhmut. The last 6 weeks have likely seen some of the highest Russian casualty rates of the war so far. The heavy losses have largely been caused by Russia's offensive against the Donbas town of Avdiivka. Avdiivka, hey Radoslav, Avdiivka is the town that is just northwest of Donetsk here. Donetsk is occupied by the Russians. The Avdiivka is not, and the Russians are going crazy trying to take it, but they're losing a lot of men and a lot of equipment, which is good. A little bit more. So the other update from the British Ministry of Defense. This was interesting too. Russian air transport movements through November 2023 suggest that Russia has likely moved strategic air defense systems from its Baltic coast enclave of Kaliningrad to backfill recent losses on the Ukraine front. Now, Kaliningrad, I always try to pull up my phone when I don't have my Europe map that Evie made for me, or not Eva, I should not Evie, Eva made for me, but I will still pull up, hang on here, I'm going to pull up Kaliningrad. Because you should see this, because a lot of people don't even know it exists. Kaliningrad, here we go. Okay. Kaliningrad is a small territory that the Russians stole at the end of World War II, and it is buried kind of in the middle of Europe, really. Basically, it's right southwest of Lithuania, right north of Poland, sort of southeast of Sweden, but Russia is not that close to it. So the red dot is Kaliningrad. Look at it. Lithuania is to the northeast. Poland is to the south. Belarus further east. Russia, you don't get Russia until you get way to the east, right? I'll show you guys too. So this is where Kaliningrad is. It's this little bit of Russian land in the middle of Europe. So there you go. Now, what is interesting about what the British Ministry of Defense said was the Russians have gotten so hard up for air defense. Thank you, Danan. For needing their air defense assets, that they went and took the air defense systems from Kaliningrad and moved them to occupied Ukraine. Now, what's interesting is, I'll read you what they say. As its most westerly outpost and bordered on three sides by NATO members, Russia sees Kaliningrad as one of its most strategically sensitive regions. The fact that the Russian Ministry of Defense appears willing to accept additional risk here highlights the overstretch the war has caused for some of Russia's key modern capabilities. So in other words, Russia is having such a hard time with air defenses that they're removing them from areas that normally they wouldn't ever consider removing air defenses from, because they're such strategically important areas like Kaliningrad. Again, this doesn't mean the war is ending tomorrow, but it means, as much as we talk about Ukraine having problems with resources, Russia's having them as well. Financial Times did a story on Turkey. I want to say violating NATO sanctions, but Turkey never agreed to NATO sanctions. Turkey's just been a jerk with this. Listen to this. So Turkey, that's a NATO member, but has never joined in on the NATO sanctions, and we let them get away with it, which kind of blows my mind. Listen to this from Financial Times. Turkey's exports to Russia of goods vital for Moscow's war machine have soared this year. Thank you, Nicholas. Heightening concerns among the U.S. and its allies that the country is acting as a conduit for sensitive items from their own manufacturers. The growing trade and corresponding rise in imports of Turkey of 45 civilian materials used by Russia's military has undermined efforts to, in the first 9 months of 2023, Turkey reported 158 million of exports of 45 goods the U.S. lists as high priority to Russia. That was 3 times the level reported the year before. So the high priority items that they're getting from Turkey are now 3 times the level they were getting in 2022. And in the previous years, 2015 to 2021, this is almost 6 times the level of imports. So in other words, as the war was coming, Russia ramped up their imports from Turkey and went crazy. And they're still going crazy this year. And the Turks are, of course, allowing it because the Turks are really lousy allies. Germany has provided Ukraine's state grid operator Ukrenergo with 300 million euros, $328 million for the repair and modernization of their energy grid. Thank you, William. That is what I've got for the Ukraine news. I'll do just my quick pitch as always, and then we'll keep doing Israel. Just keep the gifts coming, guys. I appreciate. Also, it's my birthday, so I deserve gifts for my birthday, but I also need them because I do this full time, and your guys' gifts help me pay the bills and help me keep doing the show. So please do help me out. Thank you. And I will always try to do a shout out when I see them. And you guys know on YouTube when I see the gifts, I'll always do a super chat question gifts. Now I got all the birthdays coming in again. Thank you, guys. I can't thank you all, but thank you for all the gifts. Thank you, Nancy, for all the well wishes. I mean, all right. Oof. All right. Let's do more. Thank you, Super Hornet and Lena. Israel. Hey, Hedge. So a lot of news coming from Israel. Not a lot, but a lot. I mean, thank you, Boy Mom. Thank you, Bob West, Pam. Meaning not Thank you, Joe. I knew I was going to do this. All right, we'll do the thanks. Elizabeth, Red, Pam, Fred, Richard. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Timbo, and who's got the heart there? Napoleon. Thank you. Frumple. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Martin. Oop, yeah. Should I start? Oh, maybe not yet. Boy Mom. Oh, Swam person. Thank you, Swam. Swam. I'm calling you Swam. Joe. I got Richard. Alex, thanks, guys. Thank you, Martin. You guys crack me up. Thanks, Alexia. Thank you, Rusty, for the rose. Sandy with the confetti. Frumple, sorry. Hey, guys, I gotta thank people for the gifts. So hope you don't get too upset, but I do feel like I need to thank folks. Oh, Live Fest, that was cool. Cheryl, and was it Lena with the hearts? Jetta, magical. Okay, I think we're decently caught up. Chazak, thanks, guys. All right, Dutch Cossack and Boy Mom. Tom, all right. Thanks, Alex. All right, Israel. I mean, I don't mind the gifts, but Israel. So we had more prisoners and hostage exchanges today. Thank you, Blue Ariels. They were released, which is good. There was a little hiccup in a minute they thought they were going to have, but in addition, actually, the big news today, which is good. Thank you, Martin. Is Israel and Hamas look to have, thank you, Pedro, to have agreed to extend the ceasefire another 2 days. Now, that pretty much was a deal, thank you, James, that Israel had offered from the beginning. And they said, look, if you agree to release 10 additional hostages, we will release an additional 50 prisoners, because that was the number not 50, another 30 a day. It's 30 a day because it's 150 for 5 days. Thank you, Bonnie. So if Hamas releases 10 hostages, Israel will release 30 Palestinian prisoners, and the ceasefire will continue 1 more day. Okay, so that's the way they're doing it. They did agree for 2 more days to continue, which is good news, I guess. Let me give you a little more of the details here. Oh yeah, some of the analysis was it's not clear how long Israel's going to want to keep doing these ceasefires, because at some point, thank you, Amy, as I was telling you, Israel at some point wants to take out Hamas. It's not like this is a dispute. You could settle this if there were a serious effort at talking peace. You could settle that maybe. Thank you, Frank. But I'm saying peace for the region, like a big peace talk, maybe. But in terms of this battle right here, Hamas came in, they obliterated the Israelis, 1,200 deaths. I mean, horrific attacks. Israel's really only reasonable response is to take Hamas out. I'm saying politically, and I know politics, there is nothing short of taking Hamas out that Israel can do. Now, whether Israel can take Hamas out is another question, right? Whether they actually can pull it off. But Israel can't just say, well, we killed a lot of people, Israelis, we've done enough. The Israeli people are going to be like, well, we didn't ask you to kill a lot of people. We asked you to take out Hamas, right? We need you to stop them from attacking us again. So I'm not sure how Israel can sort of get into a permanent ceasefire. They were also saying, the experts were saying today, that Hamas itself may not want a longer ceasefire either, because at some point Hamas is going to run out of hostages that it can give up. If it were to give up all the hostages, thank you, Patrusin, or Patrusin. I'm never going to get that name right, but thank you for that. Thank you, Bonnie. Hamas would run out of hostages and the war would start again. B, Hamas does not want to run out of hostages, right? Because they want to keep some of the hostages as leverage, particularly the Israeli soldiers they've got, men and women both. Thank you, Neil and Bonnie. So at some point, Hamas, currently they're letting civilians go, mostly. Currently, they're letting old elderly and children go. They're not letting moms, for example, like middle-aged moms. One of the girls released today was 13 years old. They didn't release her mom because her mom wasn't elderly. Also, Hamas playing a little bit of games here. Thank you, Jerry. Hamas claimed in that case that, we don't know where the mom is, so we couldn't release her. Now, in some cases, that's true because, unfortunately, and I think the Red Cross may have said this, or it was Qatar. Qatar. Qatar said at least 40 women and children are being held hostage in Gaza by other groups, such as Palestinian Islamic Jihad. That is another terrorist group. Okay, so that's the first problem, is Hamas has to know where these prisoners are to release them. And if other groups have them, Hamas has to see if they can get them. The second problem is that Hamas is also lying in this case. The girl herself said, look, BS that they don't know where my mom is. This entire time in captivity of 49, 50, 51 days, wherever they are right now, they had my mom with me side by side. My mom even cut my hair. Her mom cut her hair shorter because she needed a haircut while she was in captivity. She said, up until 2 days ago, they knew where my mom was. There you go. Blip just said the same thing. The girl said she was separated from her mom 2 days prior to her release. They know where the mom is. They're playing games. They seem to be separating children from their parents as just one more way of screwing with the families or whatever it is. Anyway, they released 4-year-old Abigail. The American was released this weekend. That was good. Another young boy was released. I don't remember his name. The 10-month-old baby has still not been released. Hamas is still holding a 10-month-old baby hostage. I just can't even. You don't hold a 10-month-old baby hostage. You don't. What else we got here? Netanyahu. So Netanyahu today, the Prime Minister of Israel, Elon Musk shows up. Elon's in Israel now, which they're both such idiots. I mean, Netanyahu and Musk both. I'm sorry. So Musk, we've talked about. And anybody who's following the news knows what's up with Musk, right? Elon, the short story is Elon has had a little bit of an anti-Semitism problem, and he's now trying to make up for it. He's now trying to cleanse himself by going to Israel. The longer story is Elon has long been very anti-Semitic, at least in the last year or so on Twitter. He keeps having these eruptions and saying anti-Semitic things, such as last week endorsing the great replacement theory that says that Jews are trying to bring dark people into America in order to water down the white race. And Elon pretty much endorsed this online, which was it is offensive on so many levels. That's right. It's offensive to Jews. It's offensive to Black people, to Muslims. Right. It's like every Latinos, you name it. Well, Elon has also, of course, gotten into trouble because Twitter used to ban Nazis. Not anymore. Elon came and said, let all the Nazis back. It's okay. And when I say Nazi, I mean literally Nazi is what I mean. I'm not using the word euphemistically. So Elon, a lot of issues here when it comes to Jews and Nazis. So he has the big blow up last week on the great replacement theory and loses even more advertisers. Now, Elon lost a lot of advertisers already because of all the crazy stuff he's been doing. Thank you, Aiden. Letting the Nazis back. There was 2 weeks ago some ads of some of the very few. actually, most of the advertisers have left. The big advertisers left Twitter at the beginning. I forget, it's down 80 or 90%, something horrible. So Elon has a remaining number of good advertisers like IBM and some others. What happens? Media Matters, this liberal advocacy group, goes and finds Nazi content on TikTok, on Twitter, and the ads for these big American companies are popping up in the Nazi timeline, so they pulled their ads too. So anyway, it's a disaster for Elon. Elon is in Israel now to show that he's actually a good Jew. He's not Jewish, but he's going to basically be, I'm, more Jewish than the Jews, basically. Whatever. That's Elon's thing. Oh, and he's already talking about, like, I had no idea that Hamas was cheering when they killed the Israelis. He's just like, you're like, okay, Elon, whatever. So that's what Elon's trying to use this horrible situation in Israel and what happened to the Israelis and others to basically cleanse his soul, not cleanse his soul, because it's not about his soul, to cleanse his reputation, to get the advertisers back at TikTok, at Twitter. First thing. Second thing, Netanyahu is using this, the prime minister of Israel, because he's doing anything he can to basically show people, look what a big, important prime minister I am. Don't you want to keep me? Because the latest polls in Israel show by a factor of 2 to 1, people want him out, right? Because, well, he wasn't very popular to start with, but then he also, let these guys in and wasn't able to stop them. It was a horrific intelligence failure and military failure on October 7th when the Hamas terrorists crossed the border and killed all the Israelis and others they killed. So the phone. Well, if the phone goes off again, I'll go and grab it so I can turn it off. So that's what Netanyahu's doing. He's meeting with Elon because he thinks somehow it's going to burnish his reputation too. Just both of them, I'm like, whatever. A pox on both your houses, as they say. Really horrific story out of the U.S. I wanted to talk about this one. The sip of water. Yeah, it's Elon calling. Stop being mean to me. So we had a horrific attack against 3 Palestinian young guys, actually 20-year-old college students in the U.S. state of Vermont. It's in the northeastern United States. Nice part of the country, not the kind of place people normally get shot and killed, but this is America, so I shouldn't say that because we get killed a lot in this country. 3 Palestinians, they were 20 years old, from the Middle East. Thank you, Joe. I don't know if they're all from Gaza. One's from Gaza at least, I think. Thank you, Joe. But from the Middle East, going to school in the area. One goes to Brown, 2 other schools they're going to. And they were visiting one of the students, the other 2 came. And it's Vermont. Double check, guys, but I know it's Vermont. It's Vermont. Yeah, Vermont. Visiting the one guy's home for Thanksgiving. So the other 2 come with him. And they're going for a walk Saturday night. Thanksgiving was Thursday. Saturday night, they're still there. They go for a walk. And in the middle of the walk, some guy walks up to them and shoots all 3 of them. The 3 are in the hospital. The latest I read was the 3 are in intensive care, but critical care. The problem is one of them is in real trouble. The bullet is lodged by his spine. The last I had read was they're not sure what to do because if they remove it, he could be paralyzed. If they don't remove it, he's paralyzed. I mean, really bad. And honestly, it wasn't even clear to me if he's going to live. I mean, I don't know, but they say he's in very bad condition. 20-year-old guys. Now, they did arrest somebody today, which is good. It's a guy living right in the air, like right there. Lives across the street from where the shooting happened. Let me just look here. The one thing they don't know is they don't know if it's a hate crime yet. And as a lawyer and somebody who actually has worked on hate crime issues, let me explain this. In the U.S., we have a hate crimes law, which basically is enhanced sentencing if a crime was motivated by hatred of a select class of people. And the select classes of people are, in other words, I did it because I hate people of this religion, people of this national origin, gender, sexual orientation, religion. I'm trying to forget what else. There's a 6th category I'm forgetting. But so the idea is, if it is one of those 6 categories and the felony was committed because, I didn't say race. Okay, race. And it was committed because, in other words, I hate black people and I'm going to kill a black person, right? That is a hate crime. It's not that you killed a black person. It's that you literally killed him because he's black, right? That makes it a hate crime. And what it is, though, is the crime is already in place. So the crime is already murder, or in this case, attempted murder, probably more than, but attempted murder. But the hate crime adds to the sentence. So if he's convicted of it being a hate crime, racially motivated or national origin, it could be two categories in this case, could be religion too, maybe three, the sentence would be higher. So if the sentence is 20 years to life, which is what it is for what he's looking at, it could be gender. Maybe I didn't mention gender yet. Instead of 20 years to life, it could be 30 years to life. So 30-year minimum instead of 20-year minimum. Now, it will not likely make a difference. They arrested a guy, presumed innocent until guilty, of course, right? But if he's the guy and he's convicted, he's already looking at 20 years to life for each charge, and he's got 3 of them. He's got 60 years in prison plus that's life for him. Okay. This is the case of 3 Palestinian students, 20-year-old guys who were foreign students or are foreign students in America. And somebody walked up and shot them Saturday night. And I mean, shot them bad. Oh, hey, Tim, that's funny. I mean, horrific crime. One of them is in they're all in critical condition, but one of them is bullet by his spine, very bad condition right now. The other 2, from what I was reading, the other 2 sound like they're going to survive. One of them very bad. And I still don't know the extent of the injuries on the other. It's very bad. State of Vermont. I mean, it was horrific. The crime was horrific, but the damage he did was horrific. But here's the thing. We don't know yet if it's a hate crime. Thank you, Marie. And what I mean by that, just to tell people as a lawyer, the crime has to be motivated by animus. In other words, he had to do the crime because they're Arabs, because they're Palestinians, because they're Muslims, because they're foreigners. That if he suspected they were foreigners, that would be enough too. But you need to prove it. They need to prove it. They need to have evidence of that fact. Now, some people are saying, and I disagree on this because this is not. I'm a lawyer. You need proof. It is not proof that they were 3 Palestinians. They had the scarves on, the Palestinian scarves, the black and white, the keffiyehs. They were speaking Arabic. That's not enough proof. That is certainly interesting evidence, but that's not enough proof to prove that the guy you killed was because of that. Now, unfortunately, the reason I say this is because this is America. This is not somewhere where nobody gets shot in America. The fact that they were wearing keffiyehs and speaking Arabic, that proves that this country is horrifically violent, and gun violence is way too typical in this country. We don't know why they were shot. I would suspect personally it's because of the hate, I think, but I really bristle at people who say, we don't know. We really don't know, and we won't know. And unfortunately, like I said, we don't know because this is a horrific country. This country, people get shot all the time. No, quite the opposite, I'm saying. People get shot all the time in this country. That's why we still need to know, but it certainly is suspicious, yes. And the good thing is the police are investigating it as a possible hate crime. The FBI is involved, which is really good because the FBI will make sure that it gets a fair investigation. Although Vermont doesn't really have a history of being bad on these issues. So it's a good state as far as civil rights goes, right? So Vermont is not the kind of state where they would do a bad investigation because they're Arabs. That would be somewhere like Alabama, not this at least, which is good. In any case, it was horrific. Yeah, I just wanted to mention it because it's horrific crime. And I mean, if it isn't hate motivated, it doesn't help. And if it is hate motivated, it's horrific. That's right. It's the state where Bernie Sanders is senator from, just to give you a sense. They elected a man who's basically a socialist in America, which that stuff doesn't happen, right? All right. Any case, let's move on. 2 senior U.S. officials tell, I think was this to CNN, that Houthi forces Yemen. Remember Yemen that keeps firing missiles at Israel? They're kind of on I don't have my map in front of me, but they're kind of southeast of Israel at the end of Saudi Arabia, go a little bit east, by the Red Sea and all, not the Red Sea, but they are by the Red Sea, but I mean, a little east. They're the Persian Gulf. Well, Houthis that control part of Yemen, including the capital, was it Sana'a, have been firing at Israel from there. they just launched, and they fired at U.S. ships too, but now they launched 2 cruise missiles at American Navy ship in the area. The missiles fell short of the Navy ship, but very bad. This is considered a really significant escalation. The Houthis are basically kind of in league with Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran. They're sort of part of this league of whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to think, what was it from Get Smart? Chaos, chaos, or what is it from the Marvel thing? You know what I mean? Where sort of the Hydra, kind of like Hydra with Iran being in charge, kind of the way to look at it. Thank you. Oh, that's cool, Ellie. Thank you for that. That's very cool. Thank you. Well, the fact that the Houthis did this make you worry, did Iran put them up to it, right? Did Iran have any role? Or did Iran, right? I mean, not that Iran controls them entirely, but is Iran telling them, hey, why don't you do a little bit more? Thank you, Frank, for the gift, right? Why don't you do a little bit more? That's concerning here. The U.S. has the ability, of course, to blow the crap out of them if they want to, certainly out of Yemen and also Iran for that matter. Iran, of course, would turn it into a much bigger regional war that would be very bad. But nonetheless, it's troublesome. We'll put it that way. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully it's not Iran doing more. Let me tell you really quick, because this story matters to me. And it matters to me because, again, as I even said with the hate crime stuff, and I think it's because I'm a lawyer, but also I've worked on a lot of civil rights issues. And I got into trouble once because there was a hate crime against a lesbian in Nebraska. And I didn't believe it. I heard the story, didn't believe it. And everybody jumped on it, and was because I do a lot of media stuff, gay rights, everything else. Everyone was reporting on it. They were outraged. And I kind of mentioned it and said, I want to see more information. I'm not convinced. And everyone was pissed at me. And because I hate lesbians, this kind of crap, right? A week later, the woman confessed to the police that she faked the entire thing. It was a fake. I don't think this is a fake in Vermont. Obviously, that's real. But I'm a stickler for facts and for proving things before we say they're real. And one thing I really don't like with the whole conflict with Israel and Gaza is we keep trusting the numbers coming from Hamas. And I just wish we would stop doing that. I realize the media feels like they've got to use some numbers, but to be honest, I don't really trust Ukrainian numbers about number of Russian casualties. I don't trust the Russian numbers of the number of Ukrainian casualties. I don't trust the Russian numbers of the number of Russian casualties. When the Russians say, the Ukrainians hit our city and they killed 3 people, bull. There's no way I believe that from the Russians. You know what I mean? And it worries me because we sort of have been taking everything Hamas says and believing it. Now, having said that, where there's smoke, there's fire. I think clearly a lot of civilians have died. I mean, that's just clear. We're hearing it from enough doctors and others. So I'm willing to believe that, of course, right? But the reason I bring this up is Human Rights Watch, of all things, which is kind of interesting. Oh, I also don't trust the Israeli military or government to give us full numbers, correct numbers as well, necessarily. I agree with you on that. But the Human Rights Watch, which is one of the top 2 human rights groups, okay? Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch are the big 2. They came out and wrote a report. I don't know if it came out today or not, but I heard about it today, that about the Al-Ali Arab hospital in Gaza. This is the hospital that got hit that initially they thought Israel did back in October 17th. So we're talking 5-6 weeks ago. And it was the one where they thought 500 people died. Hamas claims 700, of course. But they thought 500 people died. They blamed Israel. The Arabs canceled the summit with Biden. Thank you, Danan. Biden was visiting, member in person, and Jordan, Egypt, Palestinian representative, all of them canceled their meeting with Biden because Israel had done this and America supporting Biden. It also was the spark that ignited all of the worldwide protests against Israel. We then found out multiple experts saying it looks like this was a Palestinian group who did it, not Israel, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Guess who else is saying that now? Human Rights Watch. Human Rights, the Israelis on the show can tell you, Human Rights Watch and Amnesty, not great friends of Israel. So it's interesting that they're saying it. But nonetheless, listen to this. The explosion that killed, this is quote from Human Rights Watch. The explosion that killed and injured many civilians at Al-Ali or Al-Alhi, Ali, whatever, Arab hospital in Gaza on October 17th resulted from an apparent rocket-propelled munition such as those commonly used by Palestinian armed groups that hit the hospital grounds, Human Rights Watch said today. This is their press release. Evidence available to Human Rights Watch makes the possibility of a large airdropped bomb such as those Israel has used extensively in Gaza highly unlikely. They go on to say, and I'm not going to read it all, that basically Gaza authorities appear to be in possession of remnants that would help make a conclusive determination of the munition that exploded. A photo taken that evening shows employees of the Explosive Ordnance Department, a specialized Gaza unit, working on the crater. A witness who was at the hospital on the evening of the explosion told Human Rights Watch that employees of the Ministry of Interior took all the shrapnel that was on the site. Hamas now says that the shrapnel evaporated. The second the bomb hit, everything turned to dust. Human Rights Watch says that's not the way it happens when things hit, and Human Rights Watch is accusing them of hiding the evidence. Bottom line, and I don't mean to belabor this hospital thing, but it's important in terms of believing Hamas overall. Thank you for the gifts, by the way. I didn't want to stop in the middle of the roll here. Dado and Cindy and Jetta. What is important with this is Hamas is lying. Hamas knows. Hamas either knows who did it or Hamas knows that the evidence isn't going to help them. They're refusing to release the evidence. And bottom line is, if Hamas thought Israel really did this, they would release the evidence 6 weeks ago. They wouldn't be sitting on it and also denying that it's real. Okay? Why it matters, this comes back to the issue of believing the numbers. Thank you. I'm not going to pronounce your name. Thank you for the hat, rabbit hole. I guarantee you that Hamas is probably including these by the way, Hamas claims 700 died. The U.S. says probably 150 died at the hospital, which is still a lot, but it's not 700. Hamas says 700. I would be very curious, let's put it this way, if Hamas is including those 700 hospital deaths in the total number of deaths they claim Israel has killed. Do you think Hamas is removing them? I don't think so. Hamas is including them, and they're including the fake number 700, not the real number. U.S. intelligence says it's probably 150. And it makes me wonder what else is Hamas including in that number? I do not say this to minimize the civilian deaths, because I'm sure there have been lots of civilian deaths. I think that's obvious at this point. But does it matter if there have been 3,000 or 4,000 civilian deaths and 12,000? I think so. I think 3,000 civilian deaths is a huge number. 12,000 is obscene compared to 3,000, right? I mean, the numbers matter. It bothers me that so many people, and again, the media did this too. The media just says, oh, actually, and Red raises a good point. Hamas admitted they're also including their own terrorists in the numbers. So in the total numbers they give of all the Palestinians killed, it includes Hamas terrorists, all the Hamas terrorists. And the United Nations has not backed their numbers up, not from I know. The United Nations generally uses their numbers. One of the big complaints has been that United Nations agencies are literally repeating Hamas numbers. And when they give the numbers, they then get asked, where do you get it from? And they said, we got it from Hamas. But historically, Hamas has been very accurate in the numbers they've provided, they say. All I'm saying is trust but verify, not even trust in this case. And the same thing from Israel. I'm not going to trust. I don't. I mean, when Israel says they found something, I'd like to see proof, right? And frankly, we've seen very interesting evidence about that. The more recent hospital, what was it, the Al-Shifa hospital? I'm still not convinced of a command headquarters, but there clearly were tunnels underneath. I'd like to see more about that, but which helped Israel's case. But they did say command headquarters, and I'd like to know more about that, right? So I think all around, thank you, Matteo, we ought to be demanding evidence, and it's basically, don't just believe people on stuff, because they're going to try to rile, especially online. My God, everyone's trying to rile up people with all sorts of fake stuff. It just drives me a little crazy. Some guy last night. Whatever. I'm not even going to say the guy last night on Twitter. Pissed me off. Any case, a little bit more here. Oh, I want to mention this just because, actually, last story I'm going to mention. Journalists at the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, some of them, are pushing their union to do a statement about the war in Israel and Gaza, but a statement that criticizes Israel for the civilian deaths, calls for a permanent ceasefire. I forgot to get the rest of it, but calls for a permanent ceasefire. Thank you, Frank. Absolutely outrageous. The union is saying, I don't don't think so. I don't think so. This is really troublesome to me. Oh, and listen to this. The New York Times tech employees urged condemnation of Israel for the deaths of children and journalists. And the unions, the journalists or the employees of these papers wanted the union to come out and oppose U.S. funding for Israel. Here's the problem. That is not the job of, first of all, that's not most people's jobs. I mean, I think, look, and I've said this before, the pro-Palestinian side has done a great job in terms of public relations. Amazing job the activists have done on this. They've done a very good job. The Israeli side has done a crappy job on public relations on this issue across the board. And one of the things the pro-Palestinian side has done very well is this really odd fixation, but they've been successful in claiming that everybody, including the garbage man down the street, is supposed to publicly issue a statement on behalf of, Gaza. And they're doing it at universities, for example. They're protesting. They've been having these sit-ins at universities and protesting because they want the university administrations think, oh, mustard, very cool. I've never seen that one before. They want the university administration to take a position on Gaza. And I'm like, what the hell? I mean, a university? Why the hell should a university? First of all, why do you care? But also, universities shouldn't take a position on a foreign war. That's ridiculous. I mean, they frankly shouldn't be taking a position on Ukraine either, to be honest. It's weird. But for a newspaper to do it is offensive. It's unethical. Journalists are not supposed to take positions on whether the U.S. should or shouldn't fund Israel. That's insane. That's what you do in countries that aren't democracies. If you're in favor of that, that's fine if you live in a banana republic, okay? If you live in a country that doesn't believe in democracy, that treats you like crap, then go for it. Then journalists should absolutely take positions on government funding of various countries. It is totally unethical for a journalist. It's totally biased. But what worries me additionally, I mean, I'm glad that the higher ups at the union said no, but that you've got people working at the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal that think this is the appropriate role for their newspaper to take the union, mind you, not just the newspaper editorial, that's different. Newspaper editorials take positions, but the union at the newspaper is supposed to take a position on U.S. funding of Israel. I question why that person is allowed to even work at the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. Because as I said, that's the position. If you think that's what you should be doing at those places, then you should be living in Iran or the Middle East or somewhere where newspapers work for the government, or Turkey, or Italy, or Hungary, even more so, where newspapers work for the government or newspapers work for a political party, but not somewhere like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. It's disgusting. And it's incredibly unethical. But it also worries me because I guarantee you we can guess who it was as far as age group for starters of people at these papers. And it's young people who I think do not understand the ethics of journalism, which is really scary. Anyway, all right, guys. That is it. I'm going to show you, as always, a couple of our auction items. Our auctions end on Wednesday. I've got very cool auction items this week. We've got auctions we do over on Discord, and I raise money for Ukraine, raise money for myself. Half the money we send back to Ukraine. I forgot, Vlad said this week, I forgot if we're not doing it for the boot fundraiser. We're doing it for something else this week, and I'm forgetting. But we've got some very cool hand-painted ornaments from Ukraine that are very neat. I was showing you guys last time. This one's got a neat bird on it somewhere. Where's the bird? Where's the bird? There's the bird. Cool bird. Pretty bird. Hand-painted ornaments. We've got everyone's favorite, which is this old shell casing, but has been made into a trench art. Thank you, Maddie. This beautiful Ukrainian trident with an angel on the back. And it's carved from an old Russian shell casing from Bakhmut, actually. But this is really, I just think this one's doing very well. These are always very pretty. A couple other things, really cool bracelet, which they're very cool. Vlad's daughter, Vicky, picked this out, but it's kind of a pretty, it has what looks like a Cossack, although somebody thought it looked like, somebody thought it looked like Loki, which I thought was very funny. They thought it looked like Loki's horns, but it's actually a Cossack. I'm not going to grab anything else right now. We've got some T-shirts. I'll show you a couple of these guys, and that's it. And then a couple of military stickers as well. Not stickers, but the military patches that are very cool from Ukraine with the tridents. Lots of cool stuff. But you can find all of that over at our Discord, discord.aravosis.com. I've got like 12 things up, I think, right now. Oh, you've got one? Oh, Martin, you got one of them. Excellent. And the trench art's been doing very well. Yeah, the shell casing people, it's always fascinating to me what people are into and what they're not into. I guess, because I try to sort of find stuff from Ukraine, but I can't always tell. So anyway, so do go check it out. Discord.aravosis.com. What's the deadline to order to get it by Christmas? You are certainly okay in the US to get it by Christmas at this point. I have no idea how it works for Europe and Canada. So that's becoming an issue, right? You'd have to just look and find what is normal shipping. Now, the problem is normal shipping to Europe is 2 weeks. I know. Canada is better, I think, from the US, but Europe is 2 weeks. So I'd be a little worried that we're already getting close for the Europeans. You know what I mean? Whereas the Americans, you'll get it for sure. You know? Callum says, normally I get stuff 2 weeks after you say, correct, but I worry about, I'll ship any, oh no, we ship anywhere. You guys pay the first of all, you bid and whoever wins, and then you guys pay the shipping. So I ship anywhere because you're going to pay the shipping. So I would, of course, ship to Israel because you're paying the shipping. I just calculate the shipping, and then once I know exactly how much it is, I send you guys a bill. But we've done a fundraiser for winter stuff for Ukraine. We actually already did some. We did a boot fundraiser. We bought $1,000 worth of boots. And actually, I think I showed you guys some of the pictures Vlad had already sent us of the boots. Oh, yeah, here we go. These are some of the soldiers showing us the boots that they bought, or we actually bought and gave them with $1,000 we raised from you guys. So we did that. These are sort of winter boots to help them with the rain and everything else and the snow. And I forgot, dude, anybody remember who was on with us this weekend? We'll ship to Palestine as well. Yes. I will ship to Gaza too. Well, Gaza, if it goes into Gaza, West Bank maybe. But remember Vlad was saying the new fundraiser we're going to do? We haven't launched it yet. What was it, guys? I'm trying to remember. I can't remember now. If anybody was with us this weekend that recalls. Yeah, but was it Kids for Christmas? Oh, it was. Yes. Yeah, we haven't launched it yet, but we're going to do a fundraiser to raise. Vlad found, my friend Vlad is great because he works with the military, but also humanitarian aid groups. And he found a town that's right on the edge of the fighting. People are still staying in the town because obviously not everybody evacuates. Just like Gaza, people told to evacuate, they don't all evacuate. And they found 80 children that live in the town still, and they want to help them for Christmas. They need supply. They need clothing, but because it's Christmas, we also want to get them candy and toys. So we're trying to raise, he said, $30 a child, but that's because it includes the food, not the food, the clothing too. $30 a child. They're going to raise some money in Ukraine as well to get 80 kids, basically make Christmas really cool for 80 kids. So, help the parents by getting them clothes, but also help the kids by getting them candy and toys. So it's, as always, our fundraisers tend to be very specific because I like raising money for something tangible that you can feel, rather than just giving it to a charity for $2,000 and not knowing what happens. We're going to help 80 kids in a small town in Ukraine who are right on the front. So I should have sent it up. I didn't set it up yet. So I don't think I've got I took down the boots. Yeah, the boot fundraiser. So I'll set it up in the next day or so. You guys can start giving. We didn't officially start raising yet though. So Toys for Tots. Oh, that's cool. But we wanted to do this. Kids in Israel. The only thing is we would probably raise. Here's the thing. If we raised money for kids in Israel, I'd want to raise money for kids in Gaza or West Bank too. You know what I mean? Because this story is different than Russia and Ukraine in the sense that in the grand scheme, I don't blame either side in the grand scheme. Hamas attacking October 7th, I blame Hamas. That's a different story. But in terms of this conflict, it goes back to both sides. You know what I mean? So, I don't know, do Israelis need help? I don't think Israelis need help getting stuff for their kids. You know what I mean? Right? I doubt it. Right? Palestinian refugee camps might, but I don't think Israeli kids need help. You know what I mean? So I'm not convinced that would be necessary is my thing. So anyway, Putin, that's cute. Anyway, so yeah, so that's what we're gonna. Yeah, you know what I mean. I mean. Anyway, what else is going on, guys? So we can do Q&A, we can do whatever. Hang out and talk. This went long tonight, but there was a lot of news, like I told you, or a lot of interesting stories at least. What else? You have a question? Okay, I'm here. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know about two Palestinians executed in the West Bank. I don't know about that. I don't know about it. I mean, I hadn't heard about it. Is Iran in charge for human rights in the UN? I don't remember. Iran sort of gets on that human rights body, which is really scary. I don't think they're in charge, which would be really scary. The U.S. isn't pulling funding on Ukraine, but the U.S. has not approved the new funding yet, which is a problem. It is so far tied with Israel funding. They haven't approved that yet either. The House of Representatives is controlled by MAGA Republicans, and they've been playing games. For example, they approved the aid to Israel, but they tied it to cutting billions of dollars, $14 billion or $12 billion, I think it was, to the Internal Revenue Service, which is our tax agency. So they basically, and this independent body in Congress does the analysis, by nonpartisan, and found that by cutting, big surprise, by cutting $12 billion or whatever to the tax agency, you're actually going to cut taxes because they're not going to be able to collect taxes from people who cheat. So the bill didn't pay for itself at all. The bill actually caused more of a deficit. So that bill's not going anywhere. So we're hoping something happens soon as far as Ukraine and Israel, but it's not happening yet, and it's bad. But the bigger problem is, are Republicans in the House going to let us fund Ukraine to any significant degree? Birthday dinner. I'm actually having leftovers for my birthday dinner. leftover turkey. Not having a big birthday dinner, but thank you. I talked about Elon's PR trip to Israel at the beginning, basically saying Elon is trying to help his credibility after all of his anti-Semitic attacks of the last couple of weeks. Now that's a funny idea. That's true. An Israel-Palestine shirt map. That's a good idea. That is a good idea. That's a good idea. I'd have to. We have to get it printed. I have to find the right map. Ha ha ha. That's an issue. I think there's a little bit of pumpkin pie left. If it hasn't been eaten, I'll steal the pumpkin pie for birthday pie. You're right. That's a good idea. Well, that's the question. I mean, Roy Derry. I'm not going to get your name right. Has Israel committed war crimes? Something that can really have a case in the ICC? Maybe. We know Hamas has. I mean, that goes without question. Even Human Rights Watch, or Amnesty, I was reading today saying lots of stuff Hamas did. Israel, possibly. The thing is, you've got to prove it. And it gets complicated with Hamas. It's kind of easy because Hamas, for example, they're just sending dumb rockets into Israel at cities, and they're just trying to hit cities. And they're sending dumb rockets. The rockets can't be controlled well. What I was reading today, because I was reading about all of this stuff at the hospital, that is considered a war crime on its face, because you literally are attacking civilians as your target is civilians. Israel will argue, and again, let's see if they can defend themselves on this. Israel will argue that they're not trying to hit civilians. They're trying to hit Hamas. But Hamas is hiding in civilian areas. So then you get into a legal debate on, we've talked about this before with some of our military folks here, who some of them think Israel has gone too far. But the point is, you have to get into an analysis of, okay, just because you kill civilians doesn't make it a crime in the military. You're allowed to kill civilians. I mean, civilians always die in wars, right? That's not a problem. You aren't allowed to intentionally kill civilians. You aren't allowed to target civilians and say, I want to kill civilians. Let's shoot this school. Let's shoot this hospital because I want to kill civilians. That's a war crime. You are allowed to shoot at a military headquarters. And if civilians get killed, that's bad, but it depends on whether you get blamed for it or not legally. This is where, so when you get into the war crime with Israel thing, you'd have to get into specific cases and it gets complicated. It just gets complicated, is what I mean. It is certainly easier. Thank you, Ernie. The Nazis literally killing civilians like that was the goal, right? Serbia, lots of killing of civilians. Putin, not killing, but yes, killing. I mean, Putin has gone after civilian areas, but like the children, he's literally kidnapping children and bringing them to Ukraine. On its face, that's a war crime. He's already been indicted, right? The Israel stuff, a lot of it is going to get into this debate, like I said, on a lot of people don't agree with Israel on this, but Israel's going to argue and say, we didn't go after civilians. We went after an enemy that's hiding in among civilians as human shields. And that gets, so who knows? What else? Well, the problem, first of all, I mean, World War II is an interesting story because I don't think we have anything to apologize for in World War II at all. Zero. So you get into a very interesting story there on World War II. At some point, it becomes an interesting discussion though, because we did try to, we dropped a bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I mean, sure, there were resource centers or industrial centers, but I mean, you dropped a bomb on the entire city. You were clearly, I mean, you can't just say, oops, the civilian casualties were a mistake or something. You know what I mean? But for example, World War II, had we had the bomb a couple years earlier, some of you might say you would have opposed dropping it on Berlin, but really, a couple years earlier, I don't know, 1940, 1941, maybe, but, certainly knowing what we know now, I would say, well, the interesting thing is at the time, I don't know if I would have supported it. Now, in retrospect, I certainly would have supported it knowing what Hitler was doing, right? Absolutely, I would have supported it now. I wouldn't now have said, well, that's civilian casualties. I would have said, are you kidding me? To stop Hitler? So the civilian casualty, we talked about this during one of the earlier shows. You get into a weird situation when theory meets policy or meets practice, right? It's easy for us to say in theory that I would never drop a bomb on a city like Hiroshima, right? Wait until you're in the middle of a world war, right? Or, as I've said, you're Israel. I would never do what Israel is doing. Wait until your country has 1,200 people slaughtered. And mind the way, you're a small country of 10 million. So it's actually like 46 million Americans being slaughtered. Wait until that happens. And then see what your country would or wouldn't do. Doesn't mean what your country wouldn't do would be wrong, but I guarantee you, a lot of the countries out there would do what Israel's doing, including my country. My country would be blowing the crap out of whoever did what happened to us. We would. Doesn't mean people would be upset about it. Doesn't mean it's right, but we would. Israel, I don't think, is an outlier in this case. I don't think so. Again, doesn't make it right though. I agree. But it's easy on the outside to say you shouldn't do that when it's not your country. And frankly, the same thing applies to the Palestinians to a degree as well. It's easy for us on the outside to say you should be nicer, right? I mean, I'm sympathetic to that argument. I'm not sympathetic to kidnapping 10-month-old babies, to be honest, right? But I'm not sympathetic to kidnapping civilians, going after military targets. I'm more sympathetic, right? Had they come in and just gone after military bases, thank you, Jeremy. Doesn't mean Israel wouldn't have to retaliate, but it would have been less of a crime had they gone after military and done what they did, even though it was, lots of death, than going after civilians. Just taking military hostages, whole other story than taking 10-month-old babies. You know what I mean? It's a totally different, like I said, any of our countries, kidnap a 10-month-old baby, see how long you survive. I mean, that you're not facing cruise missiles. I just, again, I don't want to be defending Israel on this necessarily, but at the same time, I think people who are critical aren't being serious about what their country would do. I don't think they are, but anyway, what else? What else, guys? Anything else? The Israeli-Russian hostage was released. Yeah, the Interesting. They've been releasing old women, elderly women. I don't know if have elderly men been released too. Elderly women have been released. Children have been released by Hamas. I don't know about elderly men, but certainly not younger men. But the Thailand, they released some of them, but that was a separate deal. And they released a young Russian Israeli who looked like he was 30, 35, didn't look that old. And the thinking is, it was a little gift to Putin kind of thing, which is interesting, Who, MGC? Are you asking if I interact? I do. I read the questions and I see if anything's worth talking about. But I don't know your question. I saw your question, but I didn't know the answer to it. Thank you, Timothy. MGC says, does Israel go after military targets in the West Bank? I'm just not sure what a military target is. Israelis here or Arabs? I mean, I know the Israelis would go after things in the West Bank, sure. But I mean, military target feels like a generic term to me. I'm not sure what. Yeah, everyone's saying yes. Everyone's saying yes over on TikTok, which I'm assuming yes, but I'm not sure. It depends what a military target is. But yeah, well, I guess my point is, it would depend why, right? If an attack happens, then they respond, right? So if a cop gets knifed or a military guy gets attacked or something, they may respond and go after a local Palestinian police officer. I don't know what, but I mean that kind of a thing, Yeah, they've been covered. The Palestinians that were released from prison, I covered it. I mean, the thing is, I got news for you though. The Palestinians released from prison, those stories are very gray, The one boy, I mean, I remember 2 nights ago, people were sort of talking about this one boy who was released. I told you guys about him the other night, how, he was so young and innocent. He was only like 13, and look at him today, so happy he was released. That innocent 13-year-old stabbed a Jewish man and then chased him and hunted him down like an animal, and it's on video. He and his friend might have been 15, I think he was 13, literally kind of went into a kibbutz looking for Jews, found one, stabbed a man, tried to kill him. The man ran, and you see the man running on video, security video, and the kids coming after him like this with knives. You can see the knives in their hands, chasing him to kill him. Okay? That kid, I don't have any sympathy for. There was a woman released who's a big. This woman's story is actually fascinating because she's the classic. She's the classic gray. I say gray meaning this issue being so confusing. Okay, this woman, this guy tweeting, by the way, is a total freaking liar. This woman, he tweets, she entered prison healthy and beautiful. She came out injured and burned. And he shows these 2 pictures of this woman. And the one, she's beautiful. And the other, she's burned and her face is ruined. And of course, we're supposed to think this poor woman was brutalized in prison by the Israelis. And this guy's got like 30 or 40,000 followers, I think. So he's got a lot of followers. Khalil in Gaza. He's this guy in Gaza giving you news on the ground. Well, Khalil puts out a tweet claiming that, again, the Israelis did this to the woman's face. The real story is Khalil's a liar, but the story about the woman is still confusing, but he's a liar. The woman's car blew up. That's why she's in prison. Her car blew up. She had gas tanks or some kind of propane tanks or whatever in her car, pulls over by a cop. The cop or the soldier is talking to her in the car. She's in the car. The cop says, she says, Allah Akbar, Allahu Akbar, which is, God is great. It is something Muslims say in, mosque, but it's also something terrorists say when they're about to blow themselves up. And then she says that her car blows up. She says her car just happened to blow up. It had something faulty and it set off the propane she was carrying. The Israelis didn't believe her and put her in prison. The Palestinians consider her a great story of oppression and all of this. The Israelis consider her a great story of a car bomb that seriously disfigured and injured. I saw a picture of the cop. The cop is to this day, very injured. We don't know, to be honest. We don't know. It's weird. It's a little bit of a far-fetched story, but maybe her car did have problems and she had a gas tank in it that exploded, right? Or maybe she was a car bomber. What's interesting, though, is this Khalil guy's a liar because he knows the story. Thank you, Brock. He's got, like I said, I think he had 30 or 40,000 followers. And he's claiming on Twitter that she went into prison, this beautiful lady, and look how she came out after the Jews got their hands on her. He knows damn well she went into prison because her car blew up when she was inside and they thought it was a car bomb. That's why she's injured, right? That's why she's injured. And he's lying. That's what pisses me off about the stuff you see online, guys. Thank you, Triff, because you really can't trust stuff that people are sharing unless you go and check it out because they lie. This guy, I refuse to believe this guy didn't know what he was doing. He knows that he's from Gaza. He knows the story of the woman. Now, he would have been correct in saying he doesn't believe she's a terrorist. That's correct, meaning that's a valid conclusion. I don't know if she is or isn't. But he's a liar when he says, look at her beautiful face when she went in. That wasn't her beautiful face when she went in. She went in burned. That's what happened. No, I'm not fair. He's a liar. No, this is what I'm saying. If you want people to go with your cause, don't lie. He's lying. I'm totally fair about this. They're lying. But again, she might be innocent. Maybe it was her car that blew up. I don't know. It's possible. It's totally possible. It's totally possible. So, She was already burnt when she was taken to prison. Correct. No, she wanted reconstruction surgery. The Israelis said no. They wanted her to pay for it. And, if you're in jail because you blow up a car bomb, you're not getting reconstructive surgery paid for by the Israelis. You wouldn't be in jail anyway if they thought you were innocent. If you're innocent, that's great. But, the Israelis aren't going to be paying for it, obviously, because they thought you were a terrorist. So, Polish trucker protest. The Polish truckers are pissed at the Ukrainians. This seems to be part of a larger story of, we know that there have been problems already with Ukrainian grain pissing off farmers in Poland and a lot of the other countries because it was being transited through there because remember the Russians wouldn't let them export it by sea. But then when it was getting transported, some of it would get sold, and it was getting sold at much cheaper rates than what the local prices were in the surrounding European EU countries, and their farmers were getting pissed off. Well, they're getting pissed off about a lot more Ukrainian products now, and basically saying that Ukrainian products that are supposed to just transit the EU are actually coming through, and because the EU is trying to be nice to Ukraine to help them out, they're coming through and they're actually getting sold in the EU, and they're undercutting, in this case, Polish producers. So the Polish truckers and maybe others have been attempting to close down part of the border to traffic to try to stop the Ukrainians from goods from entering. So that's what it is. So, I'm not sure what you mean, Cliff. What has happened to the rest of Aziz? I'm not sure what you mean. Hey, Tonka, I try. I don't know what you mean. What's happened to the rest of Aziz? Oops, out of my water. Finished my water. Did they close? But I thought some of it was still open, though. Roma, isn't some of it still open on Poland? Thank you, Super Hornet, for the gift. Thank you, Uncle Duck. But I thought some of it was still open. I read today they closed down some of the border, but maybe all of it. I don't know. Is it all of it? Hey, Dark. So, anything else, guys? We're already getting. Well, it's almost half after the hour. We're getting a little late. Thank you, JRD. I've got Instagram. I don't know. I know I need to update my Instagram. I don't use Instagram as much as I should. Because they take a lot of photos, but I don't use it very much, and I really should. But I just don't. I use Twitter a lot. Thank you, Joe, for that. What do you think will happen after the 2-day truce is over? I think Israel's going to keep bombing. I mean, what do you do? What do you do? I didn't even know my TikTok was posting on Instagram. My TikTok is posting on Instagram? Didn't even know that was happening. Huh. But no, I mean, the issue is going to be that Israel has no choice but to take on Hamas. Oh, thank you, Lori. Okay, I'll check. Thank you for that. Actually, I did see, it's funny because my PayPal, of course, is beyond a Oh, I see. Happy birthday, John. Thank you. I get little notices, so I did see that. Thank you, Lori. Very sweet of you. What were we saying? What were we saying with rah. Oh yeah, the 2-day ceasefire. From Israel's perspective, it can be difficult because it's people are liking the ceasefire. They're liking getting in the humanitarian aid. They're liking the fact that civilians aren't dying. And if it starts again, it's going to cause outrage all over again. From Israel's perspective, I'm not sure what else you do. Thank you, Frank. Unless, like we said, unless there is a better way for Israel to take out Hamas. And by the way, I'm not saying there isn't, because Netanyahu, right? The Israel would be in such a better situation if Netanyahu was not their prime minister right now. Because even though, I'm careful of what I believe from a country that's at war, right? Because, every country that's at war is going to release its own information, right? But do I believe Netanyahu would go too far in bombing civilians and not caring, and might be doing more than Israel needs to do to take out Hamas? Yes. That's the problem, right? Israel needs a prime minister, and I would trust other prime ministers to not just kill civilians because, oh, what the hell, right? Right? That basically looking at all the options and saying this is the best option to taking them out and minimizing civilian casualties, but there will still be a lot of civilian casualties because they're hiding among civilians. Okay, but Netanyahu, I don't believe. I would have a very hard time believing him saying, yes, we are doing everything possible to minimize civilian casualties while taking out Hamas. I would never believe that from him. No. And that's a problem for Israel, because Biden's trying to be supportive, but I think it's hard for him too, because Biden, I read something today that was an interesting take, I think maybe from The Economist, but the point was, Biden is responding to Israel and not understanding that he's actually responding to Netanyahu. So meaning Biden supporting Israel because historically America supports Israel, but he's assuming Israel will react in the way a good Israel would react, and not the way Netanyahu's Israel would react, or the Netanyahu government. And I think it's true. Like I said, I'm in between on it, but Netanyahu, I don't trust. And that doesn't help, So, right, but he's the government. That's my point. He's the government. They're not going to trust Netanyahu. He's the one running the war. If he weren't the one running the war, most of the world would still hate you, by the way, because it is fueled by anti-Semitism. It is, right? Not by everybody. I know a lot of you here that are pissed off at what's going on. That's not fueled by anti-Semitism. I know you. But a lot of the world being upset is absolutely, they hate Jews. I mean, they hate Israel because they hate Jews. They do. But it would help a lot of people, including the US government, but others, if Netanyahu weren't the guy calling the shots. Because then at least you'd have somebody that the world trusted. A lot of governments would trust, and it would just make it easier, But what do you do? What do you do? Anyway, that's your problem, not mine. Your democracy, deal with it. Anyway, all right, guys. I think we're at half past. We've been going for an hour and a half. I'm thinking he's not exactly Churchill. The thing is, I really liked him when he was the UN ambassador in the 1980s when I was in graduate school. Netanyahu was Israel's UN ambassador. Ooh, Dawn. Ooh, that's a starship. Ooh, that was like a Voyager. They say spaceship, but that was a Voyager. I recognize that. Ooh, that was cool, Dawn. Thank you. A very big birthday. Thank you for that. That's funny. That was whoever designed it, by the way, totally was going for Star Trek Voyager, but they couldn't admit it because it would probably be a copyright violation. That was very cool. Wow. Thank you for that. Anyway, all right. I'm going to head out, guys. I'm going to head out. Thank you for this very much, for all the birthday greetings and all the gifts. And we'll be back tomorrow, as always. Do check out the auctions. Like I said, we've got a lot of cool things this week, and I'm putting up more cool things next. I'm trying to put the coolest stuff up for the next couple of weeks, because with Christmas coming. Oh, I've actually decided I am going to go to Arizona. My nephew's in Arizona, and I have never been since I was a kid. So I'm going to go visit him in 2 weeks, and I will do some shows from there. I'm not going to do a recap tonight because we've been on for an hour and a half. I've got to start doing recaps again, I know, but I'm not going to do it. I've been on for an hour and a half already. I don't want to do a recap now. But I feel your pain, though. But yeah, I'm going to go to Arizona, and he's in the Phoenix area. I don't want to say exactly where he is. He's in the Phoenix area. But I've always wanted to go and visit. So I am going to do some shows from there. It just depends. Well, we'll have to figure out the time of day and all that kind of craziness, But who knows? Maybe I'll still do one a day because he's got to do some work too, CNN is reporting the news now. Well, I'm sure they are, but what news are they reporting? I'll put it on once we're done. So anyway, thank you, Tonka. Thank you guys for all the birthday greetings. I appreciate it. I know I was going to try to make some bread pudding today, but I didn't have time. Maybe I'll start making it. I've got the silver palette bread. We always do this. We talk about food at the end of the show. The silver palette bread pudding recipe is so good. So freaking good. Yeah, I've got to do the Christmas stuff. Do you guys not call it bread pudding, Callum? What do they call it in the UK? Bread pudding. What would that be? It's bread that you let, it's like pain perdu in France, but not quite. It's bread that you bread and butter pudding? Do you actually call it that? That's hilarious. That's what you call it? You basically make a custard in essence, milk and cream, or milk and eggs, and then you pour it over dried bread with cinnamon, sugar, and you cook it in the oven, and then you make a whiskey sauce for it with sugar. Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, that's what I mean. Everything you guys say is pudding. Pudding in America is a dessert. It's not all that other stuff you guys use it for. Correct. It's just dessert for us. So even like for us, for example, even creme caramel in a way, I mean, creme caramel is creme caramel because we know what, not creme caramel, creme brulee. We know creme brulee here, but creme brulee's consistency is the consistency of a pudding in America. We'd make chocolate pudding that would almost be like that, extra whiskey. Yeah. I've got to make sure we've got rum, I think, which is it still works in it, but yeah, no, it's such, I am a Trekkie. Yes. It is a wonderful recipe. The silver palette recipe, been around for 40 years, still to die for. Oh my God. Bread and butter pudding. Funny. Bread and butter pudding. That sounds so, but it is bread and butter and eggs. There's butter there too. But yes, I may start. So I was going to make some. Mom wanted some anyway. So we'll see. Maybe like I said, maybe I'll get it started tonight or something. Yeah. Yorkshire pudding is not pudding. I know that I know. I've never made or had the official Yorkshire pudding because I've never had the drippings to make it. But anyway, that's for another day. When I visit Callum to go see the Northern Lights, you can find me a good a good Yorkshire pudding as well. I'll add that to the list. And I don't remember if I tried haggis. I don't remember if I tried haggis or not. I can cook. Yes. I like cooking. Cinnamon, nutmeg, raisins. Exactly. Rice pudding's good. A little bit of a pain to make, but very good. Yep. What was this? My nan made bread pudding, which is like a fruit loaf type cake. Be careful talking about Americans are notoriously negative on fruit loaves. Bread and butter pudding is what you're talking about. Okay. Yeah. I am, but yes, I am a Trekkie. Love Star Trek. Cholupsi? I don't know what that is. Don't know. Cholupsi. Kiev cake. I looked up Kiev cake. I did look it up though. I saw it. I haven't made it, but I've seen it. Now we're not really big here. I mean, people will give what we call fruit cakes. You guys might call it Christmas cake in the UK. Like my friends in Cyprus call it Christmas cake. I don't know if that's what you guys call it in the UK, but we might call it a fruit cake here. It's funny. It was a traditional gift, but a lot of people don't like it. It's considered kind of a joke when people give you a fruit cake for Christmas, which is like a heavy cake with dried fruit in it, which I find vile. Also because I don't like dried fruit. It's like, and they're usually too sweet and kind of, okay. Callum agrees. All right. Callum's a Brit who says ixnay on the Christmas cake, or maybe not Christmas cake, but on the fruit cake at least. Oh, well, happy Thanksgiving, Christmas, Danon. Some fruitcake. I'm going to guess that like a homemade one isn't terrible, right? Again, I don't want anything crazy sweet, you know. Um, that's sort of the issue. Um, you know, liquor would probably help. Yep. Some of the cooking shows in America had like the cooking competitions. One of them, they gave them a fruitcake to use as the basis for, they said, make a good dessert out of it. It was I don't remember what they did, but it was very interesting, you know, like what to figure out to do. It was a funny idea, but I'm sure a homemade one probably isn't bad, you know, but like the Italians also have the panettone, which I've never liked. I've never liked panettone either. I just really haven't. It's just not, I think I'd have to have a fresh one. Like the ones out of the containers are just, I've always found them kind of dry. But also, I've never liked the Italian biscotti either. I find them very like, bleh, so what do you do? Never tried fruitcake, but somehow hate it. Exactly. But I think that's a fair. Stollen is a nice cake from Germany. I don't know. Panettone, good for French toast. Yeah, no, that's probably very true. Well, and my nephew's a big cook, so I'm sure we'll make some good stuff when I'm there. Maybe we'll do some cooking shows with you guys. Yeah, biscotti, I'm assuming you have to dip them in coffee. Yeah, although I'm not a big cookie and coffee guy. We have a Greek biscotti that's much better. It's called paximadia. They're kind of made for death, like funerals and things, but I love them. So I'm like, I don't make them for funerals, but they're cooked twice, like biscotti. And they're cut like biscotti, cooked twice, but they're crisp but soft. I mean, so like they crumble when you eat them, and they're moist enough. Going to Phoenix to visit my nephew in 2 weeks. But paximadia I love. Oh, the Greek ones. Oh. All right. Anyway, guys, it's an hour and 40 minutes. Let me go. All right. Let's talk. We'll see it all tomorrow. All right. Pavlova. I do like pavlovas. Pavlova is very good. Yes. All right. Good night, guys. We're going to keep talking food. Stop it. I hope Gunther's with us tonight. Otherwise, he's missing a good food conversation. Gunther's is our other food queen. All right, guys. Have a good night. Thank you again for the gifts. Thank you, mods, as always. See you guys. See you tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern.